Hi there, I'm Catherine Lawrence with FoodSaveMe.com, nutrition and cooking classes. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about Alzheimer's. Is there anything we can do at home in our kitchen to lower our risk of Alzheimer's? Can our sleep habits affect our risk of Alzheimer's? Can our medications? Can our food? That's what we're going to explore today. So I'm glad that you're here. So before we get started, I just want to remind you, if you're thinking of making a major dietary change, you always want to check with your primary care physician before you make that. And just think of the information and resources here that I'm going to share with you as another tool in your toolbox on your journey to learn more about the power of food. So I'm going to present a new way of eating that can help lower your risk of Alzheimer's disease. And I have to tell you, I didn't always eat this way. I grew up and continued into my 20s eating the standard American diet, probably a little bit worse than the average person. But in 2006, I had a health tragedy, really, a health crisis. I had stage 4 endometriosis, all kinds of reproductive problems that came along with that. I was told I needed a full hysterectomy and I was completely infertile and I would never have children. And so I would say that's when my journey on food and food choices and nutrition, what can food do for me? That's when my journey started. And I did make drastic changes to my diet. You can find out more about my story. We have another free video where you can hear that story in detail and things that I did to help recover. But through that diet change, I was able to reverse my reproductive problems, lose about 55 pounds, and go on to have 3 healthy boys. So I have seen the power of foods personally, and I like to share it with others. So I've been teaching nutrition and cooking classes like this one since 2008. I partner with Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine and teach their Food for Life program. Also, if you're familiar with Dr. Colin Campbell, he wrote the China study. He has a great online program through eCornell, and I was an instructor for him and manager of that program for several years. I teach these classes in our local community, so if you're in the North Texas area, please come by. That way you can try the food in person, and it's a lot of fun. And if you can't make it down here, we've got a lot of resources online for foods for cancer prevention, type 2 diabetes prevention, heart disease reversal and prevention, a lot of great topics. One of my favorite that I feel like I struggle with still is food addiction 911. So that's a lot of fun in that class, and I hope you'll check it out. So today, most of the information I share with you is going to come from 2 resources. So the first one is Power Foods for the Brain. It's written by Dr. Neal Barnard, and I feel like this is a really important resource for the power of foods and how they can be preventative for preventing Alzheimer's, but preserving our cognitive function and our memory. That's so important as we grow old, right? We want to remember the people that we love and the experiences that we've had. And so what I love about this book is the first half is all of the science, all the nutrition information and the research that has been done on foods relating to Alzheimer's disease. But the second half is all recipes. So there's a ton of things that you can incorporate into your weekly menus for your family and check out. Now I'm going to make 6 recipes for you today, and 2 of them come from this book. They're really good. I'm excited to share them with you. So that's this book, Power Foods for the Brain. The other resource that I recommend, I like it. I find it very informative. This is a PBS special called Protect Your Memory, and it's Dr. Neal Barnard explaining Alzheimer's disease, how foods may affect our cognitive ability, but also he goes beyond that and he talks a little bit about sleep patterns. Is that important? Medications, how those can affect our brain and its health as well. So this is a great resource that you can get from PBS. So I have to confess, Alzheimer's disease was something I was afraid of. I knew about it. I knew, friends who had parents with it or grandparents, but I didn't know much about how we got it. I always thought it was like this thing that was going to, come out of the sky and bam, one day I might have Alzheimer's. And it turns out that's not quite the way it works. There's a lot of new research out there that's showing that there are some things that we can do to lower our risk of Alzheimer's disease. And some of that starts in the kitchen. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. So if you're familiar with Alzheimer's disease, you may know that there's something called the Alzheimer's gene. It's the APOE epsilon 4 allele. So if people have this gene, if their parents have this gene, then it can increase their risk. So for example, if someone has one parent with this gene, then that person is about 3 times higher risk for getting Alzheimer's disease. Now, if someone's parents, both of their parents have this gene, then they're 10 to 15 times higher risk for Alzheimer's disease. So for them, and for all of us, I would think it's even more important to explore options and explore foods which might be protective for our brain health so we can lower our risk. And the research is fascinating, and he covers it more in the book, but it looks like eating the right diet, foods that are protective for the brain that aren't damaging it, can actually lower someone's risk even if they have that gene to as if they didn't have it at all.